Good morning. Monday morning walk time. It's a bit grey today, but it's about 7 or 8 degrees warmer than it was last Monday, so I'll settle for that. We're we're nearly in Hemington, not far from where we started last week at Great Gidding. Starting at Hemington, and we're going to find our way over to Polebrook Village and then somehow back to Hemington again. I have a rough idea where we're going, but yeah, it's Hemington to Polebrook, and see what we can find. Better get cracking on as I'm running late already. Hemington Manor. I think it's the rectory actually, Hemington Manor. It's next to the church, so I suspect it is probably the rectory, but it's an old one. Lovely old house. First snowdrops of the season. There it is, Hemington Church. Another pretty church. And like many, it's bits and pieces. Bits of it date back to the 1300s, mostly inside. I think the tower goes back to 1500s, but I think the rest of it's 1600s, because it was largely levelled in the 1600s and rebuilt by Lord Montague, and he has his stamp on many a building in Hemington and around these parts, and yeah, so I think it largely dates to 1660 with a few older bits added on. Pretty church though. We tend to find the doorways of these churches are the oldest remaining parts of the churches. Not the actual door, but the actual doorway itself, the arch. The coat of arms is the coat of arms of, I think it's the Montague family, Lord Montague, who I believe funded the church when it was rebuilt in the 1600s, if I recall correctly. That's an old one. Thomas Bullock, 1650. That's an interesting block of stone in the wall. Some very old graffiti on there. I think I can see 1668, 1690 at the bottom. Nice old phone box. A lot of these tend to be grade 2 listed now, or at least listed only as grade 2, but there's not many surviving in place now. Very nice. This green on the corner here was where the village school used to be. Can't find out much information about it apart from it was here on maps, and it isn't here anymore. So it's obviously long since gone. It seemed to be around in the 60s. Kids from various villages around here came to Hemington School. Obviously isn't a demand for it anymore. I don't think that building's anything to do with the school. I might be wrong, but it's not in the right place. It was definitely on this corner. (1924) Village Hall, I suspect. Yes, it is Hemington Village Hall. Renovated 1988. Just heading off the beaten track here. This isn't really on my route, but I'm sneaking down this footpath in the hope I might get a snippet of Bewley Hall, which is the oldest and biggest building in Hemington, but it's well hidden away. It belonged to the Montagues, and there's a very small part of it dating back to 1600s that I'd love to see. I've seen photographs of it. If I don't see this, I'll put a photograph up, but I'm hoping to get a sneaky look if I can. Well, I got a sneaky look. You'll see it better in the photograph, but through those trees is the remaining remnant of the original Bewley Hall, which really did date back, I think, to the 1500s. But it was mostly demolished in the late 1600s, except for that little bit. That's another old one. Winsome House. Polebrook, 2¼ miles. Right, heading out of Hemington now. Not a lot at Hemington, to be honest, apart from the church. It's one of those villages that go back 100 years. There's plenty going on there with schools and blacksmiths and heaven knows what, but they've all gone, all been levelled. There's not a whole lot to see there really, so we're heading out onto the road now. Coming up to a spot that I wanted to visit. I mentioned in last week's video, if you saw it, Alconbury Brook, which we crossed a few times, and I said the source of Alconbury Brook was somewhere near Hemington. Well, we're somewhere near Hemington, so I'm just coming up shortly to where I think the source is. Well, I know the source is. I've never been here before, but I've seen it on a map. So if I can pick it out, that'll be the next stop. Should be somewhere on this corner, by my reckoning. Yeah, well, this is it. There's probably no water in it, apart from a trickle. I don't think it's spring fed. I might be wrong. It's not marked as a spring. But if I waded through that and kept following it, 13 miles downstream, we'd be in Huntingdon, entering the Great Ouse. But yeah, this is this, or maybe on the other side, in this hedge, you can't really see. If there is a spring, it'll be in that lot. But this is the start of Alconbury Brook. Always fascinates me where rivers start. Looking across the fields there is Elland Farm, which made quite a name for itself for all the wrong reasons here. I think it was about 2006, 2007, that sort of time. They were going to install 6 or 7 very, very big wind turbines, reported at the time to be some of the biggest in Europe. And as is always the case, all the locals were up in arms saying it would spoil the countryside, which I guess is always the case to a degree. And cut a long story short, the locals won. Basically, the turbines never got put in, as you can see. Whether they'll come back at a later time, I don't know. That one's not in the best of health. Don't think I'd fancy going in there. This is Allen Farm, by the way. Hemington Dog Park. I'm sorry, I'm not a dog owner, and if you are, I'm not really taking the mickey, but yeah, dog park. I had to look this up. Never seen a reference to a dog park before. But apparently you can book slots here. It's a field, right? It's a field with a big fence around it, and you can book half-hour slots up to 2-hour slots, and you get the field. No one else is in there, just you. You can have one dog. You can have as many dogs as you've got, but only you and your dogs have the field. And I guess they run around. You play ball, there's no other dogs fighting with you, there's no people moaning. It's a field and you can book it, and that is a dog park. I just thought, I've never heard of that before, and I apologise to dog owners who might be thinking they're all over the place. You know, what planet are you on? What cave do you live in? But yeah, that was a new one on me. Hemington Dog Park. There's the dog park. Great fun for dogs. Hemington Water Tower. I think it's Hemington. It's near Hemington, so we'll call it Hemington Water Tower. Try to find something out about this. It's listed on a couple of pages, but it doesn't tell you anything about it. I don't know how long it's been there. My guess is 1960s, but certainly not before that. Could be later. There's just sort of no dates anywhere. I know it's not an archaeological site, but you know, it's probably going to be here now for quite a long time. It will become something. I mean, it's a landmark, so you'd think they'd put a date on it, but I couldn't find one. We're actually on it probably doesn't come across on the camera, we're actually on a hill, as much as you get hills around here. It's a sort of watershed point. To the left of me, the streams tend to flow to the Huntingdon area and the Great Ouse. To the right of me, it's flowing to the Nene. We're sort of walking along a ridge, a watershed, which is why this tower is where it's at. I'm no expert with water towers. My understanding is that they pump water up into that holding tank at the top, and then gravity powers it back down again to feed certainly the farms. I don't know what role it has in feeding water to villages, probably none whatsoever, but it provides a water supply to somebody, and it's done through gravity, so it's probably the most effective way and cheapest way to get water to people. Good heavens, that is blue sky. They did promise blue sky. They were correct. Might warm up a bit in a minute. You don't realise how big these are until you're standing at the foot of them. You kind of think they wouldn't hold much water in that. Yeah, they would. Massive. Certainly brightening up now, much more appealing. And I think from these signs, this is where we leave the road and hit the fields across to Polebrook. Left or right, left or right, right. What a lovely sound. Not the gunshot. The skylarks. Always the sign of spring arriving. You can't, very difficult to see skylarks. They're very small. They fly high. You can hear them, but you can't see them. But it's a lovely sound. Lovely sound. I wouldn't say I'm lost, but I'm not on the track I should be on. Not sure why, because I followed what seemed to be the obvious path. But I know it has to go through a coppice of trees, and I'm pretty sure that's the coppice of trees, centre right. So I'm hoping we'll bump into the footpath shortly, and then we can track down to those trees. Or we'll just be lost. We're crossing a path here by the looks. It's not heading down for the trees. Oh, that looks promising, doesn't it? That'll be it. Straight to the trees. Nicely marked. Good job it's not wet. Doesn't really help to have this blocking the footpath, but we will go on. And a footpath sign, so we're okay. This is the spire of Polebrook Church. Nice view down on Polebrook Village. Driven through it many times to get to the old airfield, where I've done quite a few videos in the past. I've never actually stopped at Polebrook and had a wander around really. I think I've walked from it but never really looked at the village, which I will put right today to the best of my ability. Big US Air Force connection with Polebrook because of the airfield. I mean, I've spoken to families of airmen. I've spoken many years ago to some of the last surviving airmen from the base, and they knew Polebrook Village inside out, especially the pub, or pubs. There are actually two of them, and yeah, they knew it well, and they were constantly asking me to go and grab pictures of one place or another, and I probably never got around to it, in fairness. Just focused on the airfield, but I think it was the 351st Heavy Bombardment Group of the US Army Air Force, or the 8th US Army Air Force, that were based at Polebrook from 1943, early 1943 onwards. I think 6,000 people, I think I remember, 6,000 personnel. Male and female were based there. Heaven knows how many never came back or never survived, but a lot of brave people. The skies would have been very busy around here. Unlike Hemington, just about every other building in Polebrook is old. There's 20 or so, maybe more, that are listed buildings. It's full of history, and I don't know all there is to know about all of it. I know some of it. I'll grab some shots of and guide you through those that I know. But yeah, there's some interesting buildings here. We shall head for the church first. All Saints Church, Polebrook, dates back to the late 1100s and pretty much massively rebuilt in the 1800s, like them all. Lovely church again. Hell of a spire on it. Massive. Again, you can bet your bottom dollar that archway is probably the oldest remaining part of the church. Very impressed with the tower and spire. Superb. It's a big memorial dated 1848. Can't quite make out what it says, apart from he was the rector of Luddington, not too far from here. Another fantastic and no doubt very, very old arched entrance there. According to old journals, that house opposite, which is listed, has two chimney stacks dating back to the 1500s, which I assume are the two on the right. I may be wrong. I can't see any others around here that would fit the bill. Yeah, I mean, it's got three very old chimney stacks, but two of them apparently date to the 1500s. To the right here is the old bakehouse, which is known as Bakehouse Cottage. 1904. I suspect that was and may still be the village hall. Can't be anything else. I think I'm going to have a wander up this street because I think this is where one of the pubs was, which was the Duke's Head, which I've never seen before. Right, jump down from the church now. Let's have a look at this village hall. I'm sure that's what it is. Polebrook Village Hall. Right, let's go and find the Duke's Head. One of two pubs that were here during the war years and popular with the airmen. Dates to 1595. Closed 1957, or certainly late 1950s. Some lovely thatched buildings, and I suspect the old Duke's Head's one of them. It's going to be that big one. He said at a guess. Yeah, the old Duke's Head, that is it. Lovely building, what a thatch. Gotta find the King's Arms now, which should still be open. Is that it? It is indeed, under scaffolding, being re-thatched. Thought to date back to the 1600s. It was extended in the early part of the 1800s, but it certainly existed, presumably as an inn as well. in the 1600s. The rather sizable bakehouse next to the church. Another red phone box, this one with a phone in. Good heavens. Don't see many of those. The old house on the left is, I believe, the Gables, and this one goes back to the 1600s. But apparently it's got a doorway that goes back to the 1500s. Not sure how that one works out. And it used to be the post office. Let's see if we can get a sneaky view of it. There's the old door for sure. Lovely old house. Just coming up to the entrance to Polebrook Hall. I'm not sure we can see much. Again, goes back to the 1600s. Much modified since. Very much listed as well. There you go, Polebrook Hall. Couldn't really film that as well, people outside, but I'll put some pictures up. The old village school. Well, still is a village school, but that's the old part. I've no idea how old it is. I did write to the school and ask them, but they haven't replied. I mean, it might do by the time this sees the light of day, and if they do, I'll add it at the bottom of the screen, but it's probably mid-1800s at a guess. That house is marked as the old schoolhouse, so yeah, I'm not sure how that works. It's opposite the actual school itself. And it says in one of my old books that opposite the school is an old Wesleyan chapel, which is now a house, but I can't work out which one is a Wesleyan chapel. It could be any of them, but it looks more like to be none of them. There's no giveaways in the names on the houses. Have to remain a mystery. Trying to escape from Polebrook here on many a hidden footpath. No signs, but I think I'm getting there. Right, slightly lost now coming out of Polebrook. It's quite a complex interchange of paths, and there's no signpost at all, so I'm going to try and cut across to where I know I need to be going, I think. That's quite useful. They're on the path I need to be on, so I shall head across and follow them. There's the path, can't miss that. I do apologise for didn't really do Polebrook justice there. There's too many people around, you know, too many people, and I don't like walking through villages and around people's, you know, front driveways talking, because they all stop and think, what's he up to? What's he doing? It's probably just me, but you tend to rush things and don't do them justice. There's a lot more to Polebrook than that, really. Worth a visit and a stroll. Maybe not with a camera, or maybe I'll try it again, who knows. I'm going to try and I'm trying to cut a corner off here really, to get off the roads, to get to a place called Kingsthorpe Lodge, and I'm on the right route now, so when we get there I'll be back. Bit of a long trek and mostly uphill coming away from Polebrook. At least we've got blue skies. Well, it's an empty field. That's about as exciting as it gets on the face of it, but actually this used to be a medieval village, and I know I'm always saying there was a medieval village here and you think, well, he's making it up, but if you doubt me, go and look on Google and Google Kingsthorpe medieval village and you can read all about it. Pretty much right in front of us now, way down over that dip for about a mile, stretched out, spread out, was a medieval village. Of particular interest really, and again you can't see anything, but pretty much centre stage there, right in front of those woods, was an old medieval moat. And how do I know that? Well, I'll put a couple of pictures up. The first will be an old medieval map where you can see there is a moat, and you can see other roadways and whatever further down the field. And then I'll put this up, which is an aerial shot from Google, and you can actually just about make out that moat, just in the way that it's lightened the colour of the vegetation on the ground. Just a slightly different footing for the vegetation, and it's marked and shown up as that moat that was on the map and on the diagram. And you can see some other shapes further down where there were roadways, trackways and whatever. But yeah, that's the site of Kingsthorpe medieval village. I forgot to mention, you know, where is Kingsthorpe now? Why has it gone? I mean, some of the medieval villages, people make assumptions like bubonic plague, the laws of the land changing, landowners wanting sheep rather than people growing crops and whatever. But nobody really has an answer for Kingsthorpe. It just seemed to peter out. It was in a Domesday book. It was in some very early census records, but sort of 1100, 1200, 1300, as the centuries went by, it got smaller and smaller until there was like less than 10 people marked as being here. And then on the next census return, it just wasn't even listed. It was the population was sort of morphed in with Polebrook, Hemington and whatever, and Kingsthorpe just vanished as such. There's a Kingsthorpe Lodge still here. I think it's a wedding reception venue. I don't know what is there. I never really researched that. I don't think there's anything historical there, but the name still exists. But Kingsthorpe Village clearly does not. I keep remembering things as I trudge across this field. Somebody asked me, who saw the video I did last week, you know, moats, medieval moats, you know, where's the castle and all this sort of stuff. Well, you know, I used to think moats were just a castle thing, but they're not. They're status symbols, ornamental, pretty much like we do nowadays. If we had room to do it, we probably would put a moat around our houses in the same way as we build a fish pond. It probably was an important person in the village. It may have been someone who thought he was an important person in the village. But you know, it's more often than not just a status symbol. There may have been a building inside it. In fact, there probably was a building within the moat, you know, surrounded by the moat, should I say. But there's no records or anything to say, or show what that building was. I don't think it would be a manor house because the site just wasn't that important, but it was somebody who had some sort of status and he wanted a moat, and that's all it was. That's a dead sign, but it's useful because I want to make a shortcut across the field here, and I've got an excuse now. I could just say, well, the sign was pointing in that direction. That's good enough for me. Just coming back into Hemington now. I missed this building on the way out. In the 1880s, it's marked as the blacksmiths. I don't believe that building is anything to do with it. I think, you know, it's probably been levelled. These are all new builds. There is a wall slightly to the left of this house, just randomly standing there. It may possibly be a surviving remnant of the old blacksmith. I can't see anything else that would tick the box. Yeah, you've got this old wall here. That could be the old blacksmith building. I don't know. I don't know. That's it, back at the car now. Quite a long one that actually, about 4.5 hours walking. It's a good exercise for me. Bit of a boring walk. I do apologise, wasn't a whole lot of great excitement, and what there was I didn't film very well, but I hope you saw something that was of interest. I will try harder next week to find another random walk in the middle of nowhere and hope that it might turn something up. You never know. So yeah, see you a week today, next Monday.